Hi, tonight I'm gonna read you some philosophy books, hoping that you're interested in that. And I'm gonna do it very gently with a soft spoken attitude because I really like it myself. I have these triggers with the back of my neck, and sometimes just very small little sounds give me a lot of relax. And I also really do enjoy philosophy. So I put some books with me, books that I read and books that I didn't read, because I thought it could be nice also to discover some new stuff with you. And this one in particular is the one that I wanted to start with, is The Conquest of Happiness. It's from Bertrand Russell. He was a mathematician, not just a philosopher. And I think he's mostly known as a mathematician rather than a philosopher. And I'm not that much into analytic philosophy myself, but this book is really existential. So I read it, I think the first time it was 2 years ago, something like that. But I read it in Italian, as I am myself Italian, and I hope that my accent doesn't bother you too much. Maybe some of you can find it funny or relaxing as well. So the first chapter, is entitled What Makes People Unhappy. I really like this version of the book because it's second-hand. I like second-hand books. And this one was held by a guy, I guess, or a woman, called J. Nielsen. And she or he read it or started reading it probably on the 2nd of August of 1962. So it was quite a while ago. And so I like this book, even if now it's basically abandoning me because the pages are falling apart. And because the person who read it first made a lot of notes on it. So here is the first note that this first reader of the book just did on the first page. And it is, the attitude required is that of doing one's best while leaving the issue to fate. I really like this quote. I would like to reflect on that later. Let's start the reading. There's a quote from a poet of the 19th century. You might know it. It was called Walt Whitman. I think that is the correct pronunciation. I hope so. And I don't know if this is a part of a poem or a complete poem itself. But the quote says like this: I think I could turn and live with animals. They are so placid and self-contained. I stand and look at them long and long. They do not sweat and whine about their condition. They do not lie awake in the dark and weep for their sins. They do not make me sick, discussing their duty to God. Not one is dissatisfied, none one is demented with the mania of owning things. Not one kneels to another, nor to his kind that lived thousands of years ago. Not one is respectable or unhappy over the wall hearth. I think actually the pronunciation is earth. It's not hard. I will make a lot of mistakes of this kind because even if I know how words are pronounced and I hear a lot of and see a lot of English speaking movies, films, it's just so hard to settle the correct pronunciation of the words in your head, as I started speaking English pretty late in my life. I actually moved to Denmark just 1.5 years ago or something like that. And before that, I didn't really have the opportunities to speak in English that much with other people. But I hope it's gonna be enough to do this reading. So here we have the part 1 of the book is entitled Causes of Unhappiness. And it starts with the chapter 1 entitled What Makes People Unhappy. Animals are happy so long as they have health and enough to eat. Human beings one feels ought to be, but they are not, at least in a great majority of cases. If you are unhappy yourself, you will probably be prepared to admit that you are not exceptional in this. If you are happy, ask yourself how many your friends are so. And when you have reviewed your friends, teach yourself the art of reading faces. Make yourself receptive to the moods of those whom you meet in the course of an ordinary day. A mark in every face I meet, marks of weakness, marks of woe, says Blake. Though the kinds are different, you will find that unhappiness meets you everywhere. Stand in a busy street during working hours, or in a main thoroughfare at a weekend, or the dance of an evening. Empty your mind of your own ego. In adolescence, I hated life and was continually on the verge of suicide, from which, however, I was restrained by the desire to know more mathematics. Wow, he didn't commit suicide because he wanted to be a mathematician. To me, the two things are not so far from each other, but I can say that just because I have some good friends who are mathematicians, and I would say that they went pretty insane, or maybe they were already when they started studying. Now, on the contrary, I enjoy life. I might almost say that with every year that passes, I enjoy it more. This is due partly to having discovered what were the things that I most desired, and having gradually acquired many of these things. Partly, it is due to having successfully dismissed certain objects of desire, such as the acquisition of indubitable knowledge about something or other, as essentially unattainable. But very largely, it is due to a diminishing preoccupation with myself. Like others who had a Puritan education, I had the habit of meditating on my sins, follies, and shortcomings. I seemed to myself, no doubt justly, a miserable specimen. Gradually, I learned to be indifferent to myself and my deficiencies. I came to center my attention increasingly upon external objects. The state of the world, various branches of knowledge, individuals for whom I felt affection. External interests, it is true, bring each its own possibility of pain. The world may be plugged in war. Knowledge in some direction may be hard to achieve. Friends may die. But pains of this kind do not destroy the essential quality of life, as do those ethical code. Liberation from the tyranny of early beliefs and affections is the first step towards happiness for these victims of maternal virtue. Pretty dramatic representation of this sinner. This book is awesome because it's so old, but the pages are really falling down. Here, the owner wrote down all the notes, but I can't understand the way he writes. Let's see what he noted down. I'm curious. Page 55. He noted down something from the starting page of the chapter dedicated to envy. So he must have been an envious person, maybe. Or he really related to that. Maybe someone closer to him had the problem. It's still 2 pages, still the end of the first chapter, dedicated to the causes of unhappiness. Narcissism is, in a sense, the converse of an habitual sense of sin. It consists in the habit of admiring oneself and wishing to be admired. Up to a point it is, of course, normal and not to be deplored. It is only in its excesses that it becomes a grave evil. And many women, especially rich society women, the capacity for feeling love is completely dried up and is replaced by a powerful desire that all men should love them. When a woman of this kind is sure that a man loves her, she has no further use for him. The same thing occurs, though less frequently, with men. The classic example is the hero of that remarkable novel, Les Ans Dangereux, I guess, I don't know, I don't speak French, which describes the love affairs of French aristocrats just before the Revolution. When vanity is carried to its height, there is no genuine interest in any other person, and therefore no real satisfaction to be obtained from love. Other interests fail even more disastrously. This is a difficult word. Disastrously. Narcissist, for example, inspired by the homage painting, is for him a narcissist, for example, inspired by the homage paid to great painters, may become an art student. But his painting is for him a mere means to an end. The technique never becomes interesting, and no subject can be seen except in relation to self. The result is failure and disappointment, with ridicule instead of the accepted adulation. The same thing applies to those novelists whose novels always have themselves idealized as heroines. All serious success in work depends upon some genuine interest in the material with which the work is concerned. The tragedy of one successful politician after another is the gradual substitution of narcissism for an interest in the community and the measures for which he stands. The man who is only interested in himself is not admirable and is not felt to be so. Consequently, the man whose sole concern with the world is that it shall admire him is not likely to achieve his object. But even if he does, he will not be completely happy, since human instinct is never completely self-centered, and the narcissist is limiting himself artificially, just as truly as is the man dominated by a sense of sin. The primitive man might be proud of being a good hunter, but he also enjoyed the activity of the chase. Vanity, when it passes beyond a point, kills pleasure in every activity for its own sake, and thus leads inevitably to listlessness and boredom. Often its source is diffidence, and its cure lies in the growth of self-respect. But this is only to be gained by successful activity, inspired by objective interests. The megalomaniac differs from the narcissist by the fact that he wishes to be powerful rather than charming, and seeks to be feared rather than loved. To this type belong many lunatics and most of the great men in history. Love of power, like vanity, is a strong element in normal human nature, and as such is to be accepted. It becomes deplorable only when it is excessive or associated with an insufficient sense of reality. When it occurs, it makes a man unhappy or foolish, if not both. The lunatic who thinks he is a crowned head may be, in a sense, happy, but this happiness is not of a kind that any sane person would envy. Alexander the Great was psychologically of the same type as the lunatic, though he possessed the talent to achieve the lunatic's dream. He could not, however, achieve his own dream, which enlarged its scope as his achievement grew. When it became clear that it was the greatest conqueror known to fame, he decided he was God. Was he a happy man? His drunkenness, his furious rages, his indifference to women, and his claim to divinity suggest that he was not. Well, maybe he was into men? We don't know. At least I don't know. I never gained such interest in knowing the sexual preferences of Alexander the Great, but maybe his disinterest in women was fulfilled by other interests. There is no ultimate satisfaction in the cultivation of one element of human nature at the expense of all the others, nor in viewing all the world as raw material for the magnificence of one's own ego. Usually the megalomaniac, whether insane or nominally sane, is the product of some excessive humiliation. Napoleon suffered at school from inferiority to his schoolfellows, who were rich aristocrats while he was a penurious scholarship boy. I didn't know that. Poor creature. When he allowed the return of the émigré, he had the satisfaction of seeing his former schoolfellows bowing down before him. What bliss! Yet it led to the wish to obtain a similar satisfaction at the expense of the Tsar, and this led to St. Helena. Since no man can be omnipotent, I don't know how is the accent of this word. In Italian is omnipotent. A life dominated wholly by love of power can hardly fail, sooner or later, to meet with obstacles that cannot be overcome. The knowledge that this is so can be prevented from obtruding on consciousness only by some form of lunacy, though if a man is sufficiently great, he can imprison or execute those who point this out to him. Repression in the political and in the psychoanalytical senses just go hand in hand, and wherever psychoanalytic repression in any marked form takes place, there is no genuine happiness. Power kept within its proper bounds may add greatly to happiness, but as the sole end of life it leads to disaster, inwardly if not outwardly. The psychological causes of unhappiness, it is clear, are many and various, but all have something in common. The typical unhappy man is one who, having been deprived in youth of some normal satisfaction, has come to value this one kind of satisfaction more than any other, and has therefore given to his life a one-sided direction, together with a quite undue emphasis upon the achievement as opposed to the activities connected with it. There is, however, a further development which is very common in the present day. A man may feel so completely thwarted that he seeks no form of satisfaction, but only distraction and oblivion. He then becomes a devotee of pleasure. Oh, that is me. I'm that kind of unhappy person. That is to say, he seeks to make life bearable by becoming less alive. Drunkenness, for example, is temporary suicide. The happiness that it brings is merely negative, a momentary cessation of unhappiness. Well, if you're constantly drunk, then the momentary cessation of unhappiness is not momentary anymore. That might be a solution. Maybe. Ask Danes about it. The narcissist and the megalomaniac believe that happiness is possible, though they may adopt mistaken means of achieving it. But the man who seeks intoxication, in whatever form, has given up hope except in oblivion. In this case, the first thing to be done is to persuade him that happiness is desirable. Men who are unhappy, like men who sleep badly, are always proud of the fact. Perhaps their pride is like that of the fox who had lost his tail. If so, the way to cure it is to point out to them how they can grow a new tail. Very few men, I believe, will deliberately choose unhappiness if they see a way of being happy. I do not deny that such men exist, but they are not sufficiently numerous to be important. I shall therefore assume that the reader would rather be happy than unhappy. Whether I can help him to realize this wish, I do not know. But at any rate, the attempt can do no harm. So this was the first chapter of The Conquest of Happiness from Bertrand Russell, entitled What Makes People Unhappy. And I hope you liked it, and that you like the concept, because we want to keep doing this very nice night philosophical readings. If you are interested in participating, or if you just like the reading of this book, subscribe to our channel and check out other videos produced by Zero TV on our original site.